Hello. Okay, my name's Anthony. I'm from the ECA, Electrical Contractors Association. We're an association of electrical contractors. And something that's been very pertinent to me sitting there listening to your industry mumble grumble, similar to our industry about fly-by-nights, about everything, is that industries as a whole are starting to mix and intertwine. We see where fire prevention is now meeting the electrical industry, where we've got volatile equipment, everything's starting to intertwine. ECA's interest in the whole matter is our members, the contractors, and the suppliers and everything, have a vested interest in this, but our members' clients also do. Plus, you'll find that contractors are the people who are installing all this hoo-ha, and it creates risk. I'm going to be speaking out of an electrician's mindset. I'm an electrician. I'm almost finished with my engineering diploma and then going for my degree. So I'm going to be speaking out of an electrician's mindset. So if you don't like my mindset, become an electrician and you'll see my mindset. And before I start with anything, I want to show you guys what the risks are around lithium. Because we've seen a couple of examples of lithium. You're holding an effective bomb in your pocket right now, next to the crown jewels. It's a fact. Anybody who had an S7 went through that, burnt a hole in your leg, and yeah, it's dangerous. And this is only milliamp hours. It's tiny. It's got like 1 or 2 amps in it. But under fault conditions, it can go up to 30, 40 times that current in a short circuit scenario. Okay, so I'm a master electrician, and part of our industry is very much explosives and everything because we deal with hazardous environments. Now, there is a shortcoming in this industry. Point. I can tell you that now. I've spoken to Huawei yesterday, in fact, and even they have a shortcoming in the industry that there's not enough being done. And we're speaking in the interest of safety. So, what we're going to discuss quickly is batteries and their risks. I'm going to try and brief over everything. Current regulations. We recently hosted a battery discussion with manufacturers. FPSA was involved, and we had a couple of other notable people involved. And then I'm going to just give you a question of what's the way forward? What is the next step? Because our country is falling behind, but we are mass consumers of the product. We're the leading consumer of sun-sync devices in the world. We buy the most. There was an estimate that there's over 5 million sun-sync devices already imported into this country. That's just one brand of inverter. Okay, so lithium-ion batteries have a very scary phenomenon, and the main risk around them is what is known as thermal runaway. It starts burning, it stops burning when energy is gone. Point. And what a lithium-ion battery can do is what we're going to see. It forms toxic gas, forms everything. But thermal runaway is where the cells heat and get to a point where they self-sustain a flame. Okay, this is an example of thermal runaway. The middle battery in the device is going into thermal runaway. As it goes and it gets to the ignition temperature, it starts putting the rest of the battery cells into thermal runaway. And so it'll go until that entire battery pack is discharging energy. That's why you don't just, the safe equip guy mentioned, you wait for 20 minutes. There you are. You wait for 20 minutes because of this. The next cell will energize. And so it'll continue until that entire pack is done. That's why you don't wait, put out and walk away. You put out and you wait. Or best place to install your batteries would be at your neighbor's house. So what happens with thermal runaway is there's an initiation event. And this comes from the NFSRI in America. They've done a lot of research into the topic, so I'm just going to share some of their feedback of the research that they've carried out. Is that there's an initiation event, the temperature rises, there's an increased reaction rate, heat is generated, it starts the cycle, continues the cycle in the next cell, in the next cell, in the next cell. Okay. Additional to that is, there might be a secondary explosion formed, which will fill the environment with hydrogen. Anybody who knows hydrogen is it's extremely volatile. Here they set a battery in a thermal runaway inside a garage. First battery sets alight. As soon as there's enough hydrogen in the air, it's a bomb. So thermal runaway, as we've seen in his presentation, is caused by many things, mechanical, electrical, and so forth. Why do we put our batteries at bucky height? You're going to reverse into your garage and it's the perfect height to bump into your battery. A little bit of logic. So mechanical failures do set batteries off into thermal runaway. Now, everybody loves claiming, yeah, lithium iron phosphate is the safest battery. It's safer. And I'll show you that now. But those are some of the key facts that cause thermal runaway. And you will notice as the change in temperature rises, so the temperature rises and that it enters thermal runaway and it just runs away from itself. Those are all different mediums and where they lie on the chart. So lithium iron phosphate will be LFP. So it's got relatively low change in temperature, so it can withstand the temperature. But it's high on the temperature, but low on the change in temperature and how it affects itself. So I mentioned earlier that the FSRI from America, part of NFPA and everything, did some research. And what they found was that lithium batteries as a whole release toxic gas as well. So it does not just burn you, it poisons you. So the two main batteries that they tested was LFP, lithium iron phosphate, and NCA, nickel cadmium. And as you can see, some of the key highlighted gases that they removed, when it goes into thermal runaway, releases 28% hydrogen. Where a lithium iron phosphate, when it goes into thermal runaway, also releases a hell of a lot of hydrogen. Almost 50% of the gas it releases is hydrogen. Also releases carbon dioxide. Also carbon monoxide. Yeah, go run into your garage next time it's smoking or something and go switch it off. Understand risk. But it also releases about 20% of other hydrocarbons. It's a risk. Okay. Then as far as burning velocity goes, and your deflagration pressure, it falls between two quite hazardous gases. Propane, which is Americans, which we like to call LPG, and acetylene, which we use for welding. So its burning velocity is between those two gases. So if I had to treat it as a hazardous environment, I'd start looking at facts like this. And its closed vessel deflagration is also between the two. So it can explode. It'll release the pressure. Okay. Now, a lot of the arguments are that LiFePO4 is safer and that it won't go into thermal runaway. The reality is a battery won't just go out of thermal runaway on its own unless it's getting old and the BMS fails or something like that. Something has to happen for a battery to enter a thermal runaway state. Be it temperature, be it damage, be it overcharge, or even be it depth of discharge. You pull it to a low point and you put too much amperage in it and it damages the cell, sets it alight. But As we saw from the nickel cobalt example, it enters thermal runaway at 150 degrees Celsius, which is very low. Most of the fires where batteries and stuff were involved are not directly caused by the battery. It's generally caused by external influences, where you've got a fixed switch that's arcing, creates a fault, rises the temperature, burns, and the battery starts burning and goes. The amount of energy it stores is between 200 to 260 watt hours per kilogram. So it's quite dense in energy. I mean, if you take some of the lesser known, cheaper batteries, they'll be close to 100 watt hours. I think a lead acid is something like 50 or 100. So it's way more energy dense. And that's why we like lithium. But lithium is volatile. We saw in the video, it reacts to water. Goes. So that ignites at 150 degrees, where lithium iron phosphate ignites around 270 degrees. So it's considered safer because it takes a little bit more to get it to go into thermal runaway. It also has a lower energy capacity per kilogram. It's underneath the minimum of the nickel cadmium. And these two are not the only two that there are. There's a list of about 17 different batteries. You get lithium titanite, all sorts like that, which will all have their own burning characteristics. Okay. Now, I always get asked, what do we do? And the whole discussion that we hosted was around, where do I put the battery? Did you know SANS, South African regulations and standards, don't have an answer for you? In 10142, the electrical standards, they'll tell you how to safely connect it, but they won't tell you where to place it. SANS 10.10.8, hazardous location environments, also. 10.400, there is an interpretation. If I had to use my logic as an MIE, I would automatically class a battery as a Zone 2 hazardous environment. But that's not practical. That means every house in this country is going to become a hazardous environment, and nobody can certify that portion unless they've done the appropriate training. It's not practical. So we do need the standards to back us in a safe way forward. There's a argument at the moment, and I don't 100% agree with that argument, but I do see where it's coming from. One guy determines that your area classification changes, your occupancy changes, based on the fact that now you've got high volatile equipment, like in a storage area, inside your house. So he deems that you change your classification area. I don't. I still see that it's a house with a bomb. It's still a house. Because this is a major effect going forward. If we have to implement the 10400 as it is now to protect you against a battery, you'd have to have a 2-hour fire door in front of your garage. Give me time to escape. If we have to determine what the OSH Act says, we need to keep people safe. We have a responsibility of safety. That means keeping people free from any hazard, danger, anything which can cause harm to persons or property. That's our responsibility. As an electrician, that's my legal obligation. I sign a certificate that I declare something safe. But can I do it if I don't possess the knowledge? And as far as is reasonably practicable, I have to take into account every risk, the severity, everything. That's a logical approach to it. That's what the OSH Act deems. This comes from the OSH Act. Is I take into account the severity, the knowledge available to remove or mitigate a risk, and the cost versus benefit. The cost versus benefit already weighs out the hazardous location story. But as far as somebody mentioned earlier, we always look internationally. Do international standards tell you where to install batteries? Yeah. In New Zealand, they adopted a standard in 2019 where they limit the locations that batteries can be installed. The Americans, I don't like them, but they like testing things, so they've got answers. They've also got stories, any battery above 1 kilowatt has locations, and that's from the NFPA 855. British standards have recently adopted two specifications, a specification, which they found the risk that because British like to put their batteries in the roof void, what if that thing blossoms on a fireman's head while the house is burning? That's a fact. That's why they brought this in. So they're also limiting location. So we presented a discussion and we invited all of these people. And we came out of that with a better understanding. So what is the risk? You've got a fire hazard, you've got an electrical hazard, and you've got a noxious gas hazard. You need to deal with those hazards. What do we recommend on going forward? Proper placement, location, mounting instructions, and protection. Installation and maintenance, adequate risk management, and qualified installation personnel. You can read this at your own, we'll publish it. But what I want to close off with is South Africa is behind. We as South Africa, in the electrical industry specifically, we've always been forerunners. In this instance, we're far behind. Where people are installing batteries in flats that aren't designed for it. Where they've got one exit and they put it by the freaking exit. Where's the first place your DB is? Generally in a flat, is right here by the front door. How's that person going to exit when a jet of flame that long is busy shooting from a battery? Allow people to live, allow people to safely exit. And what's going from here is, we're getting all the input from all the manufacturers, and we're going to make a recommendation, at least in the electrical standards, to adopt some or other statement of location.